In a village surrounded by thick forests and golden rivers, there lived a clever spider named Anansi. Anansi loved one thing more than food, gold, or even sleep. He loved being the smartest creature in the world. Every day, the villagers came to him for advice. How do I grow better crops? One farmer would ask. How do I solve an argument? Another would say. And Anansi always had an answer. But deep inside, he feared something terrible. What if one day, he whispered to himself, someone becomes wiser than me? One evening, Anansi heard an old legend about a magical pot of wisdom hidden high in the mountains. It was said that anyone who possessed the pot would hold all the wisdom in the world. Anansi's eyes widened with excitement. All the wisdom in the world. Then I will become the greatest genius forever. The very next morning, he packed food, tied a rope around his waist, and journeyed through the jungle. He crossed rushing rivers, climbed steep cliffs, and escaped hungry leopards hiding in the shadows. After many days, Anansi finally reached a cave glowing with golden light. And there it was. A beautiful clay pot resting on a stone pedestal. The pot of wisdom. Anansi carefully lifted it into his arms, and instantly, thousands of thoughts rushed into his mind like a storm. He learned secrets about nature, people, animals, and the stars above. He laughed loudly. Nobody will ever be smarter than Anansi again. But soon, another thought entered his mind. If others find this pot, they might steal the wisdom from me. I must hide it where nobody can reach it. So Anansi carried the heavy pot back to the village and searched for the tallest tree in the forest. He decided to hide the pot at the very top. But there was a problem. He tied the pot to the front of his stomach, making it impossible to climb properly. Every time he tried, the pot bumped against the tree trunk. Up he climbed a little. Slip. Down he fell. Again and again, Anansi tried, growing more frustrated each time. Nearby, his young son had been watching quietly. "Father," the boy finally said, "why don't you tie the pot to your back instead? Then you can climb easily." Anansi froze. Slowly, he looked at his son. Then at the pot. Then back at the tree. The little boy was right. At that moment, Anansi realized something shocking. Even though he held the magical pot of wisdom, he still didn't know everything. Wisdom could not belong to one person alone. Angry and embarrassed, Anansi threw the pot to the ground. Crash! The pot shattered into thousands of tiny pieces, and the wisdom inside scattered across the entire world. That is why today, wisdom belongs to everyone, not just one person. And as for Anansi, he learned the hardest lesson of all. The smartest person is the one who never stops learning. After the magical pot of wisdom shattered across the world, Anansi became even more determined to prove that he was still the cleverest creature alive. But everywhere he went, people laughed about what had happened. The mighty Anansi was outsmarted by his own son, the villagers whispered. Anansi hated hearing those words. One hot afternoon, while wandering through the marketplace, he overheard a group of elders speaking about something mysterious. The Sky King keeps the most powerful stories hidden far above the clouds, one elder said softly. No human or animal has ever been allowed to own them. Anansi's eyes sparkled immediately. Stories were powerful. Stories could make people laugh, cry, learn, and remember things forever. And if he owned every story in existence, everyone would respect him again. That very night, Anansi climbed to the top of the tallest hill and called out to the mighty Sky King. "O great ruler of the heavens! I, Anansi, wish to buy your stories." Suddenly, thunder rumbled across the sky. A giant golden cloud appeared, and from it came the booming voice of the Sky King. "You buy my stories," the king laughed. "They are far too valuable." Anansi bowed dramatically. "But surely there must be a price." The Sky King thought carefully before smiling. "Very well, little spider. If you can bring me 4 impossible creatures, the stories shall be yours. Anansi grinned confidently. What creatures do you seek? The king's voice thundered across the heavens. A leopard with teeth like knives. A swarm of deadly hornets. A giant snake longer than a river. And a fairy no human has ever captured. The villagers gasped in fear when they heard the challenge. It cannot be done, they whispered. But Anansi simply smiled. The next morning, he dug a deep hole along the leopard's favorite path and covered it with leaves. When the fierce leopard walked over it, crash! He fell straight inside. Anansi quickly tied him up with ropes. One creature captured, Anansi laughed. Next came the hornets. Anansi filled a calabash with water and poured some over himself. Then he splashed water onto the hornet's nest. Oh no, he shouted. A terrible rainstorm is coming. Quickly, hide inside my calabash so you won't drown. The hornets rushed inside for shelter. Slam! Anansi sealed the opening tightly. 2 creatures captured. Then came the giant snake. Anansi laid a long stick beside the snake and pretended to argue with his wife. My wife says you are shorter than this stick, Anansi said loudly. The snake became furious. Shorter? Impossible. Measure me at once. The giant snake stretched himself beside the stick, and instantly Anansi tied him tightly with vines before he could escape. 3 creatures captured. Finally, Anansi tricked the magical fairy by placing a sticky doll in the forest. When the fairy touched it, she became trapped. With all 4 creatures captured, Anansi returned proudly to the Sky King. The heavens shook with surprise. You truly are clever, the king admitted. And so, the Sky King opened a golden chest filled with glowing stories and handed them to Anansi. From that day forward, stories spread across the earth for everyone to share. And that, people say, is why tales are told around fires, in villages, and across generations even today. After winning the stories of the world from the mighty Sky King, Anansi became more famous than ever before. Every village told stories about his clever tricks. Children laughed at his adventures. Elders spoke his name beside evening fires. And Anansi loved every moment of the attention. But as clever as he was, Anansi still had one great weakness. He was extremely greedy. One dry season, food became scarce throughout the land. Rivers shrank, crops struggled to grow, and many animals searched desperately for something to eat. One afternoon, while wandering through the forest with an empty stomach, Anansi spotted something wonderful beyond a wooden fence. A huge field filled with ripe, juicy melons. The bright green fruits glistened under the hot sun like treasure. Anansi licked his lips. Oh, these melons look delicious. The field belonged to Elephant, a strong farmer known for protecting his crops carefully. A sign near the gate read, "Thieves keep out." But warnings had never stopped Anansi before. Late that night, under the cover of darkness, Anansi squeezed through a tiny hole in the fence and rushed toward the nearest melon. He grabbed one greedily and began eating. Chomp! Sweet juice ran down his face. This is the best melon I've ever tasted. He ate and ate and ate until suddenly, pop! Anansi's stomach became enormous. He tried to crawl back through the fence hole. But he was stuck. Anansi panicked. Oh no! If Elephant finds me here, I'm finished. Then his clever mind began working. Nearby lay an empty melon shell. Quickly, Anansi hollowed it out and climbed inside, hiding himself completely. The next morning, Elephant entered the field carrying a basket. But when he walked past the melon hiding Anansi, a tiny voice suddenly spoke. Good morning, Elephant. Elephant froze. His eyes widened in fear. Who said that? I am the talking melon, Anansi said in a deep mysterious voice. Elephant trembled. A talking melon. Impossible. Yes, the melon replied. And I know all your secrets. Elephant nearly fainted from fear. He immediately carried the magical talking melon to the king's palace. "Your Majesty," Elephant shouted, "I have found a melon that speaks." The king stared in disbelief. "A talking melon? Show me at once." The melon sat silently. Everyone waited. Minutes passed. The king frowned angrily. "This is foolishness." Just as Elephant began sweating nervously, Anansi suddenly spoke again. The king sleeps with his mouth open. The palace exploded with laughter. Even the king covered his mouth in embarrassment because it was true. Now the king was amazed. This melon truly is magical. Soon, crowds gathered from everywhere to see the mysterious talking melon. But inside, Anansi was sweating badly. The hot sun baked the melon shell, and the smell of rotting fruit became stronger every hour. "I must escape before someone discovers me," he whispered. Like, comment and subscribe for part 2.